Hey y'all, welcome to a Mindless Morning Show special interview. Sit back and relax with your hosts, Nick and Josh.
Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mindless Morning Show. Today our special guest is the bassist of the Steve Miller Band. His name is Kenny Lee Lewis. He's a husband, father. He's in another musical project called The Friends, F-R-E-N-Z, and he is an author, and he's done so much stuff, and now he's going to be mindless with us today. So everybody, get ready. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, man. Hanging out here in Central Coast, California, man. We just had a little storm threatened here in the last couple hours. It was really blustery and windy, but the rain never came. But it looked like it was coming. I saw a big black cloud and stuff. But we're just hanging out here, and we're not freezing. You know how California is, man. You know, we're just chilling.
That almost sounds like Florida weather. Crazy storm never appears.
Yeah.
So that's where Josh is, and I'm in Texas, and today was a beautiful day, but damn, a couple weeks ago, it was like ice. It was ridiculous.
Whereabouts in Texas?
Right outside of Austin.
Oh, beautiful, yeah. So you're okay.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about you. Okay.
No.
Our guitar player in the Steve Miller Band, his name is Jacob Peterson. He lives in Austin.
Well, I'm going to have to hang out with him sometime then, for sure. Once you tell him how much fun this is and how great we are, and I'll get him. You know, if you guys want to interview him, he's quite an interesting interview because he's from Denmark. Yeah.
Really. So he's like a heavy metal guitar player from Denmark that ended up in the Steve Miller Band.
Nice.
Yeah, I like that.
We're always up for that. But you mentioned you wouldn't have to worry about Nick because he's in Austin, but this guy's in Austin, so is he crazy for being there? Is that what you're implying?
Well, Austin's kind of like Denver. It's kind of a blue town, and it's like a lot of California, and New York, expatriates.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right on. So speaking of starting so he came from Denmark and ended up in the Steve Miller Band. How did you end up in the Steve Miller Band?
The way I ended up in the Steve Miller Band is that I was a studio musician in LA from about 1975 through about 1985. I was in that golden era, at the very end of the golden era of studio session work in LA. And I'd gotten into the business through my wife, who had her second record deal on ABC Dunhill. At the time, she just hired me as her bass player, and we started writing songs, and then she insisted that I play on her album, and Jeff Beccaro was on the album, and Jay Graydon, and all these great players, and David Page. So it was kind of like Toto was her band. It was kind of cool. And Fleetwood Mac was in the studio with us. They were recording Rumors at the same time, so it was a really, really interesting time in Los Angeles when music was just on fire, and I got hooked up with some good people, and I started doing studio work. I ended up in a studio on a session one day up in the valley called Fidelity, and there was a gentleman that was doing a lot of demos there named Gary Malaber. He lived in the neighborhood, and Gary had played on all of Steve Miller's hits. And Steve at the time was kind of like on a hiatus. He'd kind of taken a break from his two big albums that, of course, are the ones you always hear about on the Greatest Hits album. And he had put out one record called Circle of Love. And that came out about 80. And it had one little song on it called Heart Like a Wheel. And it got a little airplay, but it wasn't a big hit. Mm-hmm. So he was kind of dry. And so we were going for, I'd gotten in a band with Gary through this studio called Fidelity with a gentleman by the name of Gerard McMahon. And he had a couple of record deals on American Recording Label, which was owned by Earth, Wind & Fire, of all people. They wanted to get into the rock and roll business, so they hired us. We were kind of like a new wave weirdo band, dressing funny and a lot of synthesizers and a lot of eighth notes muted on the guitar, and singing real weird and stuff. And so Gary and I and a guy named John Massaro became songwriting partners out of that project, and we were going for our own record deal with a band we had called Robbie Ubop. And Robbie Ubop was getting signed to Irving Azoff and Ron Weisner management. It was going to be a big deal, and we were going for this deal, and we ended up with 8 masters that we'd recorded in Gary's garage on a TAC 80-8 half-inch 15 IPS machine with DBX, which is the same machine that the Eurythmics used on their first album, which was, these dreams are made for you, and we're disagreeing.
Yeah.
Same record, same machine. So we had a good sounding demo. It was like really good. So Gary got a phone call one day when we were over there working, and his wife came in and said, Steve Miller's on the phone. And so he went and answered it, came back from the meeting, and he told John and I, he said, well, Steve has to do a record. He has to deliver it. This was around September of 1981. He says he has a record he has to deliver by Christmas, but he's kind of dry. He needs material. He wanted to know if we had anything, or Gary per se, because Gary had played in all of his hits and had toured with him. And so he asked if we could give our permission, to send the demo over. We said, sure. We thought maybe he'd do a song, like one song.
Yeah.
Or something. Well, he heard all the 8 of these masters that we'd recorded in Gary's garage, and he loved them, and he wanted all 8 of them. So he wiped us out. We didn't have a band anymore because he completely wiped out our repertoire. So he sent over a 24-track 2-inch machine and a pickup truck to Gary's house, transferred the tapes, and then all of a sudden, I played bass and guitar on almost all those demos. So all of a sudden, I'm the bass and guitar player on this new Steve Miller record out of nowhere, just because we did our homework and recorded a great sounding demo.
Wow. That's amazing.
We worked on the record all through to the holidays and got it out in time for Christmas. And that's when he asked me if I wanted to be in the band, because I had just helped him. I was just helping produce, and and I had co-writes and was playing all over the thing. And he just said, you were already all over this record. Why don't you just come out and tour? I didn't have to audition or anything. So I met him as a peer, as somebody who needed my material and my production skills. And then he just asked me if I wanted to join the band. And it was a tough decision because I was making really good money in the studio, and I just didn't. It was tough because I didn't want to necessarily be a road dog. I wanted to be my own guy. My dream was to just be a studio musician, but also have my own projects on the side where I was writing my own material and getting record deals and seeing if I could get a hit of my own.
Yeah.
But I kind of turned to Diane at that time, who at the time was just my fiance. And so, what do you think, honey? And, because she was savvy in the business. She says, you've already done 3 records, because I had another record deal before the Gerard thing too. So I'd had 3 record deals. None of them had a hit. None of them had gotten off the ground. And she says, well, you had 3 tries. You didn't get a hit. She says, here's a guy named Steve Miller who's going to sing your songs. He goes, I would say let him sing your songs and see what happened. And sure enough, Abracadabra sold 5 million copies, and I had co-writes, and I had the flip side of the single.
Woo!
I love Abracadabra. That and the Joker, aside from those 2, which I feel like are pretty obvious cop-outs, I think the one that really resonates with me the most is Rockin' Me, and it's mainly because that was one of very few songs played throughout a certain area at Universal for the Amityville that I used to work at, and I heard it so much throughout the day. I was like, all right.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Beach Boys, with a little edge, and it's happy. It's all that major like this. It's sitting way up here. Keep on rocking me, baby. It's real happy. Makes you feel happy. So Steve is a blues-based artist that took the blues and made it happy by taking the minor third and moving it up to the major third. Yeah. That's all he did. That was his genius, was singing songs with a happier major melody rather than all that bluesy, stuff that you're hearing in all the R&B and soul music. But even in the rap world today, it's all bluesy notes. So he just made it happy because his favorite bands were like the Four Freshmen and the Beach Boys, people like that. So, he grew up in the 50s, and he was all about lyric and melody and voice texture. That's what he was about.
So I can't even imagine, but how does it feel to know that almost every single person knows, has heard the band that you're in? Well,
it's funny you mention that because a lot of people have heard the band, but a lot of people don't know, but they don't know what the band name is.
Yep. Yeah. But
so what I have to do is when I'm telling people what I do, I always go, I'm in the Steve Miller band. I go, who? Is that Glenn Miller? I go, no, Steve Miller. And I have to sing them the songs. Do, 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 do. Keep on rocking me. Take the money and run. Jetter-liner. La, 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 la.
Yeah.
Love. And especially, I'm a joker. I'm a smoker. Because then they go, oh, yeah, I love that.
Yep.
Okay, well, can I have my free lunch now?
Hell yeah, you can.
There's tons of perks. I imagine being you, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's, it's one of those phenomena. But that's really a testament to him, too, because nobody knows what he looks like. He can walk through the crowd just before going on stage. Nobody knows who he is. And so his art precedes him. And how many artists do you know where the art precedes the man?
Not many.
It's always, Mick Jagger's face and Aerosmith's face and, Now,
why is
great.
that?
Aerosmith, Tyler's face.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I wonder why is that?
Well, because then it's cult of personalities more than this music. And that's when sometimes the music is equal to the cult of personality, but a lot of times it's not. A lot of times it's just, we just saw the Grammys last night. That was a lot of cult of personality. There wasn't a lot of music going on, but it sure was a lot of personality.
Right. Yeah, that's true. It's almost like, maybe he did that intentionally. Like, I don't want to be everywhere, my face everywhere.
I think so. Music. I don't know if he started out that way because he was kind of poppy and dressing up like a rock star when he was young. But then when that sort of all came down, when he had his greatest hits and all that stuff, he just finally realized, he goes, I'm a lot safer and I'm a lot less bothered if I just kind of disappear into the woodwork and let my music speak for itself.
Yeah.
And, other artists come to mind like Neil Young and John Fogerty. Like if John Fogerty was in the audience walking through before he went on stage with a pair of sunglasses on, you wouldn't know who John Fogerty was. Because you know why? They didn't ever have any controversies. They didn't have any, rape cases or beating up their wives or,
that's
or
a lot of it
drug
too.
busts or, they never did a movie or they didn't do a bunch of television interviews. And, their face was not on the cover of Time magazine.
And the internet wasn't around.
Or Rolling Stone. Now, Steve was on Rolling Stone at one time, but he was on a tractor, and it was a distant shot,
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't a sex god with his face all over. It wasn't. He didn't do that,
Smart.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, I think that's a good idea. I feel like that's kind of how I would like to go. It's almost like if you win the lottery, a lot of people would want to be like, I didn't win the lottery. Like, I don't know, because
you don't go to a bar and start boasting about it,
Oh my God, yeah. Get your ass kicked outside of the bar.
A level of humbleness to achieve that. And that
I agree.
Shows some character there. But so out of all the songs that you've played with him, which one is your personal favorite to play or listen to?
Probably Fly Like an Eagle, just because it crosses over. It was the one single he had that crossed over to black R&B, which is a music genre that I kind of did a lot of in my early career. And my wife's from Memphis too. She and her family grew up on Beale Street during the 40s and 50s, and they were there before Elvis even showed up, and they were playing rock and roll long before he ever came on the scene. And so I come from that root of R&B blues. And like I said, Steve, the first 5 albums, or I'd say the first 4 albums even, were albums that I really liked, that I bought with my own money. And when he came out with The Joker on the 6th album or the 7th album, I think it was, like you said, I just thought he'd sold out, with the cat call and all that stuff, man.
Yeah.
Where's the revolution, man? And, because I was a hippie, and it was like, when I heard Fly Like an Eagle on the radio for the first time, this is about 77, I went, whoa, that's pretty cool, And of course, it all had a lot to do with Gary Malaber's drumming and Lonnie Turner's bass playing too. But the effects, and the synthesizer and his echo guitar, all that. And then the message of the lyrics was like, yeah, we're talking about feeding babies, man, and, helping the homeless and then whatnot. And like, how many people did that last night? There was one guy, I think it was Lil Baby, had that one song that had, the Molotov cocktail, and he was sending a message and all that stuff. That was cool.
Yeah.
That's kind of what rock and roll was for me, was a way for us to use our media of our music genre as a news station to tell the news of what really was going on, because you couldn't get the truth back then either. Come on, I grew up in the Vietnam War. I was almost drafted into the Vietnam War, man. It was heavy, man. And so I delved into music and jumped off to music to save my life, because I thought I was going to have to go.
Yeah.
So that actually brings up, for me, somebody that I was not around during that time, but if you were doing something like touring in a band, did that omit you from having to get drafted?
There were little tricks you could do, and that's the thing. The reason why Fogerty wrote the song called, Fortunate Son, was that he was talking about that very thing. There were a lot of people that had money and could buy their sons out of, I ain't no senator's son. I mean, that's one of the lyrics. And so he was saying that, a lot of guys didn't go because they had connections. But if you didn't have connections and you were from the inner city and you were just like hopping around, man, and you were single with no kids and you weren't going to college, you were going on the front line, man. You were going to the DMZ, and you were doing, you were barbecuing that meat, man.
Wow.
Yeah. Napalm. Holy crap. Yeah, that is heavy for sure.
And everyone nowadays thinks they have it so hard.
Oh, I know. The poor millennials, they just have such a hard life.
I didn't get enough lights.
I can't have a car. Oh, mom and dad. It's like, come on. Geez.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You're going to NAM.
Yeah.
So, I understand. I get it. I wouldn't want to be a kid growing up with this last administration we just went through for the last 4 years. Oh, my God. And being a young person, not even knowing what the truth is ever, even in your government. It's like, that's tough. At least we had Huntley Brinkley and Walter Cronkite. They were telling us the truth, on TV, and they were bought off or working for some giant conglomeration where they had to lie. They were just giving the news the way it was, so at least we had a semblance of the truth. Now, JFK's assassination, they covered that up, but that was so big that it was just something. It was kind of like, Jack Nicholson saying you can't handle the truth. It was like that was kind of the situation. That it was better for the nation not to know. Kind of like UFOs.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh wait,
okay. Right?
Better for the nation.
But that's starting to change.
Now hold on. Now that you bring up UFOs, my favorite topic is aliens. So
yeah, well, my books have aliens in them. Oh, you love my books.
Perfect.
And that's hell yes.
So you totally believe in aliens? Have you met an alien? Have you seen a UFO?
I've had some experiences. I've had a close encounter of the second kind, but not the third kind.
Oh.
Whoa.
I've had some saucers hovering. I've had some hovering saucers.
So about like how close to you?
Say that again.
About how close to you did you have these?
I'd say within a couple 100 yards.
Ooh. Damn.
Hovering. Yeah.
That's pretty.
So were you doing
crazy.
like something to summon them, or like flashing lights in the sky?
Actually, 3 times. It's actually had 3 times in my life. One was right after Sputnik was, launched in around 1960, and another time when I was out in the desert on a birthday with some friends on some psilocybin. And then another time where it wasn't on any of that. I was just drinking and smoking a cigar with some buddies up at my cabin in Montana, and we had a weird little solo light that was coming around trees, just being kind of shy and hovering and kind of coming in and out. When we'd look at it real close, it would kind of go back behind the tree again, almost like the way a drone might be, but it wasn't a drone. It was at night and had a pretty bright light on it, So it was pretty weird. And I have witnesses on all 3 of those accounts. My family was with me on that very first one with the Sputnik thing shooting off like a comet. And then my friends were with me when we had the hovering craft, and then this other one was at the cabin. I have witnesses. So all 3 I have witnesses.
Wow. All right, well, we're going to need to speak to all your witnesses. No, I'm just kidding. That's really cool. I still wish I've seen one.
But never seen a little guy or a little creature. No. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like they being like the government, they're slowly like saying, there's some things we don't know. They're like giving out a little bit. So whenever it's officially, announced, it won't be such a weird thing for people to grasp. To me, it's not. They could tell me and I'd be like, duh, of Of course there are.
I mean, it could even be like a fractal conglomerate of fractals. I don't know if you've studied fractals, but I mean, there's things that happen in nature, like that happens in crystals and quartz and even in sound vibrations and stuff that are all consistent all the time. And fractals are a part of that. And they're microscopic, and they're of a design that geometrically is very, very interesting. And if they get condensed, fractals could actually become an entity of some sorts, but they could also dissipate immediately just as fast. And I've seen that on the other side. I've been on the other side before with another Yucatan Mayan experience that I had. And I saw how fractals can be disassembled and reassembled, kind of like the transport on the Star Trek ship, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
So we may not see a flesh and blood creature poking us in the shoulder going, hey, but we may have a flighty, weird second dimension, thing where a molecular structure of fractals are condensed, and they kind of are there for a minute, and you can actually see a shape or a form or feel a presence, and then they're gone. Just the same way people have said about ghost encounters. Very similar.
Yeah. That actually makes
it's
a lot
like
of
plasma.
sense.
Plasma. It's not completely congealed.
Mm-hmm.
I think next episode with you, we're gonna have to do an ayahuasca trip or something on Zoom.
I have something better that you don't have to eat.
Oh, okay. What do you got?
There's no reason to get sick to your stomach. You don't have to do that.
Okay. Can you share this?
It's all DMT. The ayahuasca is DMT. It unlocks the DMT that's inside your pineal gland. That's what the whole idea is. It's not the chemical that's doing it. It's just a key that opens up your own pineal gland and makes it flush. The same when you're in a guitar lead and you're way into it, or you're painting, or you're in some other kind of cool, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
When you kind of go out and you're out there, that's just your pineal gland flushing DMT and serotonin. So if you can figure out a way to get that to flush, that's when you use your own chemical that's on your own body that God intended you to use to have that experience and go to the other side.
Hell yeah. Because we've heard a lot about it. Josh, you've done it.
Allegedly. Yes. So, to stay on the legal safe side, yes. And
yeah. Allegedly.
Very,
so
very
speaking of so now that we've been talking to you a little bit more, and that's one thing I like about our show. We try to get everybody really comfortable and know that we're non-judgmental, we're badass. I
wanted to go mindless because I knew that was the name of the show. So now we're coming out of our mind and we're expanding it.
Yes.
That's what I thought you'd like to do.
Dude, you totally get it. He totally gets it. And then I can wrap it around and say, now I know that your mind is how do I say, you have a very awesome, interesting mind. So now I can talk about your book series because you've put some of that in your book series.
Yes. The book Skeleton Dolls that I wrote about 5 years ago is on sale on Amazon. You go on Amazon and look up Skeleton Dolls, Children of the Tower. It was a story that was a true story that inspired the whole thing. Our bass player in the Steve Miller Band started dating a twin, beautiful twin. She was probably about 30 at the time. And her twin showed up one day, and they were identical twins. And oh my God, it was they were just totally identical. And they were so lovely, lovely girls. And eventually I met the mother, and the mother started telling me stories about what they were like when they were little. And I had heard a twin speak before, but you can Google that for your listeners out there. Just Google twin speak. And it's a language that twins sometimes speak, and fraternal twins can do it too. But it's a language that they speak up till around maybe till the time they're 4, when they start going to preschool and they start learning English, they start learning how to talk to their parents. They usually let it go, and it just disappears. And she was telling me stories about these 2 kids and the scary, weird stuff that they would do, and the telepathy that they had and everything. And the hair was just standing up on my arm as I was hearing this.
No shit.
And so I asked the mother, I said, well, can I write a story about this and base it upon these experiences? And she said, well, yeah, just change the names and, go ahead. And so I did. And that's what it is. It starts out, first 10 chapters are all true. Which is really interesting. So after the first 10 chapters, I take it out into Stephen King land, and they take their language now into their school years and then also into their adult life. And we find out that the language, and I don't want to be a spoiler, but basically we find out that it's been passed down from mother to daughter, because there's singing that goes along with it too. They actually sing incantations in certain weird dialects and frequencies. It becomes healing. It can raise the dead. It can do all kinds of things, and so they end up at an institute, not unlike the X-Men, where they're just kind of like being studied, for their telekinesis and telepathy and this power of their language, because what they do is they raise their friend from a drowning accident on live television, and they become famous. And then they become besieged with all these requests of everybody, of course, wanting them to help save their relative's life or bring somebody back to life. So it gets out of control. And so they end up finally, breaking up the two twins. They can't even be together anymore. Of course, they try getting married and having relationships and stuff, but they just have a hard time, So without it being a spoiler, we find out this language was passed down from this Celtic bunch, from the Druids, and it goes back to even an earlier civilization prior to the Celts. So that's what makes this really interesting. And I base it on the biblical precept that the Tower of Babel was destroyed because we had built this tower because all of a sudden we got smart out of nowhere. I actually explained that in my new book. I explained that in my new book, which is the sequel called that Lesson in the Grotto, which I'm trying to sell right now as an agent, trying to get an agent. But basically, the way the story goes in the Old Testament is that we got smart all of a sudden. We started building this huge building that went up the clouds. We even had chariots that would rise off the ground and go up to the top. And it was like, this is in the Old Testament. I didn't write this, And so they were speaking their own language in those days, and everybody spoke the same language. So we're talking about the same language that Abraham and Noah and Ezekiel and, all these people were using, I think even Moses. And so what happened to that language? Where did it go? Well, in the Old Testament, it says when we got smart, we built this building. God got mad because he thought we were trying to be like him. We were trying to become gods ourselves with our intellect and our intelligence. And so basically, he destroyed the tower, and he confounded in the Greek translation of the Old Testament, the Dead Sea Scrolls. It basically says he confounded the language. Doesn't mean he destroyed it. He just made it so where if you speak it, the other person can't understand what you're saying. You can't learn it. It's just like I'm talking to you now, and it would be like it'd just be like you couldn't understand what I'm saying. So that was confounding the language. And so when that happened, he also spread all the different peoples at that time across the world, and that's how all the different races and civilizations occurred on the planet Earth, and then we all came up with our own individual languages. It was after the Tower of Babel experience. So my book involves all that.
That's very amazing, very interesting, and a lot jam-packed into a book.
And where we got the knowledge from, which was basically the book of knowledge, which is in the Old Testament as well, with the Adam and Eve story and the snake. Well, the snake, he's there. Why? And why has he got no arms and legs? Because he grew up in a weightless environment. Why would he need arms and legs? The snake is not an earth snake. The snake is an alien. And the snake brought a 3D iPad for these people to study. And that's how they got smart and built this tower.
Shit. Yeah. That's
a lot.
I've spoiled the book a little bit, but if you like that kind of mumbo jumbo, then my book is a novel based on factual events, and that's why I say it's a little bit like Dan Brown, because if you ever read Dan Brown likes to take factual places, factual events, factual buildings, locales, and he builds them into a story to where when you actually look at all that, especially if you go to Italy and you look at all the buildings he's talking about and stuff, you go like, wow, man, that could be true. Just like National Treasure, it's the same kind of stuff, Yeah. So that's the way I write my novels. So it's based on fact. You can't refute it, but you could also say, well, I don't know about that. And you'll go, okay, well then just it's a novel. Then just enjoy it for entertainment value.
Exactly. That's the best. That's such a good way to do it because it's a base. It's a basis that everybody can wrap their heads around and understand. But then you can do your own thing with it using that base as like a foundation.
Well, that's what the Bible is. That's what the Bible is.
Right.
Whenever you read the Bible, you interpret it your own way. I don't care what the pastor tells you. You're going to interpret it your own way. Now, that could be good or bad. That's what happens. That's what happened with the Quran. The Quran got interpreted wrong. That's why, Islam gets a bad rap, because if you really read the Quran and you really read it for what it is, it's a beautiful religion. It's actually a really great way to live. It's just that the army that was built around him to save his life, because everybody's trying to kill him, got a little out of hand, and they started misinterpreting parts of it, and then they got a little frisky and they started taking over the world, and that's just not good.
I mean, that's definitely a lot that you jam pack into your book, and I mean that you certainly sell it to be a very interesting book. But I have to ask, what got you into wanting to start writing?
Well, my father was a writer. My father was a writer, and his grandfather was a writer, and neither one of them had any novels that got sold. But my father did write a sort of a docu bio. It was sort of like a bio. It was called Early Pioneers, California, 1939-1940. I'm sorry, Early California Pioneers, 1839 to 1849. And it told the story of California prior to the gold rush and what the state went through and all the European settlers that came here, what they had to go through to become Mexican citizens in order to own land and to do business here. And it was the predecessor prior to the Bear Flag Rebellion. So my dad wrote that history book, and it actually got published, and it went into the school system out here in California.
Oh, wow. That's
so crazy. He was a writer, but he couldn't get his characters to jump off the page. He didn't know how to get that going. And he had all the facts together. He had a really nice way of saying it and a real nice flow, but his characters didn't come. And so I had to really work on starting to get in character development as a part of my style. So it took a while. I mean, I started doing, articles for Guitar Player magazine. I wrote an article for Native American Smithsonian magazine that I got paid for. And, I started becoming a published writer, and then that's when, and I wrote a screenplay, a screwball comedy screenplay. And then I got this idea, like what I said, when I met this twin and I heard the stories from her mother, and I just started going crazy, and since then I've written about 5 novels, and I've got a bunch of different ones, but this is the one that I think is the most interesting, and I would like to launch with this one, and I'm looking for an agent. So if there's an agent out there that likes sci-fi and likes
listen up,
women's empowerment, and new age thinking and whatnot, also it involves ecology. Because the twins eventually end up going to Australia, and they study with an outback Aborigine tribe. It's not even on the diet. They're not even on the census records. They're invisible. They're the invisible Aborigines.
Wow. Damn. And I can't believe that was all spawned off of just hearing a story about 2 twins, and then you took it.
Yeah, I just took it and ran with it, and it just
That's how that creative mind, man, gears turning all the time, coming up with more and more and more and more.
And I didn't know whether I had the gene. You have to kind of test the waters. And so when I self-published the book, I didn't realize that I was sort of destroying my chance to get an agent for it, because in the literary world, which is different than the music business, when you put out a book, if you self-publish it, do all the artwork, release it, sell some, they don't want to talk to you because you've already blown it in their opinion.
Oh, wow.
Because they invest their time and effort into promoting your book, and they want to be involved in every step because they want it to be a hit. So they want to be involved in every single part of the title, the artwork, characters, certain chapters they want to throw out, or whatever characters to get rid of, because they have to invest their time into it, because they're not getting paid. They're just trying to help you get a hit and get it published with a publishing house. And that's called a deal. It's just like a record. They call it a deal. It's funny, but I've looked into it. And in order to get a deal in the literary world, you have to come in with fresh meat that nobody's ever seen before. So it's almost like a TV or a movie non-disclosure, where you can't really talk about what it's about because you don't want to get stolen. So you have to keep your book as a secret until they get their hands on it. And so that's what I'm trying to do with the sequel right now.
Hell yeah! No, I love that. So we're going to take the quickest of breaks really quick, and then we're going to jump back in, and we're going to keep talking. We're going to keep talking to Kenny here. We're going to ask him about his YouTube channel, and we might have some mindless, dumbass questions like we usually do.
That's all right.
So Yeah, so we'll be
back
right
to
back.
rock and roll. Back to rock and roll.
Yeah.
Thank you for staying tuned in to the Mindless Morning Show. We hope you're enjoying another fun-filled episode and would love to hear from you. If you're listening, be sure to follow us and leave a review. If you're on YouTube, please like, comment, subscribe, and click that notification bell to be alerted anytime a new episode drops. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed your break. We are still here with Kenny, and we're going to ask him this question. Now, first thing that comes to your mind, if I ask you, do you have any crazy stories that you recall from something that you did or a bandmate did or somebody did on the road or on stage?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I figured.
are any shareable?
Well, the one that comes to mind that I can prove on YouTube, which is kind of cool,
Oh,
is
that's awesome.
when we'd had the Abracadabra hit in 82, and it's kind of spilled over into 83. It went for quite a while. It was one of those songs that you either loved it or you hated it. And in this case, more people liked it than they hated it. Thank goodness. It was kind of like, Howard Stern, it was just, you just couldn't stop listening to it. It was crazy. So we went back in 84. Now this is when the song was already starting to kind of fall off, but we went back to Europe in 84 and we were doing a show called Rock Palast. And Rock Palast was filmed in the Rhine River in Germany, and it broadcast all the way into Russia because the wall hadn't even fallen yet. If you remember, that was, I think, in 85 when the wall fell.
Yeah.
So it was still communist Russia. And so we were broadcasting this rock and roll festival into Soviet territory. So young kids
like that.
your age were watching us play this stuff on TV if they could get their hands on the show. So anyway, it was a pretty big show. U2, who had been our opening act in 82 on the Abracadabra album, were now all the way up and about even with us, but Steve couldn't stand the fact that he might have to let them close the show. So he agreed to let them play just before us, and he would close the show. We had Talking Heads, we had Stray Cats, we had Joe Cocker, we had Mink DeVille, just all these, Emmons, what's his name? Anyway, so we had a lot of groups on this bill. So Steve wanted to close the show. So he wanted to do a magic act to close the show with. And the magic act was going to be, he was going to walk up at the end of Abracadabra, right as he was playing his solo, up a little stairwell into a cage that was up on stilts. And the stilts had wheels on the bottom, so you could rotate the cage and look underneath it and everything, And it was, a pretty good sized cage. And what the trick was is they were going to have little curtains on it. And so when he got inside the cage and he was playing, he had his guitar, they'd shut the curtain, and then they'd take the wheels away that he crawled up on, and they would spin this thing, and there was a false back in the back of it that he would grab and pull down. It was made out of plywood, and in the back of it was a Bengal tiger. And so what he was going to do was he was going to go into this cage, shut the curtains, they were going to spin it around, and then open it up, and a tiger was going to replace Steve Miller, a live Bengal tiger. And we had rehearsed this in London for about a month. We actually went there and rented a theater, and we stayed there. We were on Kensington High Street, and we rented out this old theater, and we got the guy from Connecticut that was a magician dude that built the thing and designed it, and we rehearsed and got that all going because Steve wanted to have this big giant thing on television that was make him look like David Copperfield meets Jimi Hendrix, and it was crazy, So the London experience in itself was pretty funny, and we ended up having to wear tuxedos in August in Germany.
Oh, God.
And it was really hot, and there were bugs everywhere, and it was right in the middle of summer. And the reason why we had to wear tuxedos, because while we were rehearsing in London, Steve wanted everybody to go out and get some good stage clothes, right? So he pays everybody a little per diem money. He goes, okay, here we go out and get some really good clothes. So Everybody goes out and buys whatever they thought was good. And they came back and it was just like all this weird stuff, And Steve was just like, oh my God, no. You got
no coordination.
There's just no rhyme or reason. It's just awful. So I said, that's it. We're going to the Highlander tux shop. And everybody's going to get a tux. So I actually I went into the Scottish section, and I got the real cool little blazer that the guys with the kilts use, with the silver buttons with the double breasts and everything. It looks pretty cool. I would have never worn a kilt, of course, but I got the top, and I ended up just wearing regular black slacks. So I ended up with this really cool Scottish Highlander blazer jacket. But everybody else, they didn't go in that section. They just got regular tuxes with bow ties and everything. Oh my God. So anyway, that being said, that kind of ties in with the story. So then we do the concert. There was an interesting thing that occurred earlier in the day. I'll tell this little side story. I don't know if you remember you guys are probably too young, but there was an actress who was from Germany. She was really beautiful, and she was married to Peter Sellers for a while. Peter Sellers. Her name was Britt Eklund, and she was very, very, very popular back in those days. This is in the 80s, and at that time she left Peter Sellers, or they had divorced, and she was dating Slim Jim in the Stray Cats, who was one of the acts on the bill. You ever heard of the Stray Cats?
I've heard of them, yes.
Boy, am I old. Yeah, well, they were an 80s. They were sort of an 80s tattooed, kind of like a psychobilly kind of band,
Okay.
And you ever heard of Brian Setzer?
I don't mean to make you feel old. It could just be the fact that I'm very uncultured. So.
Okay. Well, anyway,
same here.
Your listeners will know if they're over 45 years old, they'll know. So anyway, Britt Eklund was downstairs. We had done the sound check. We had never done the act in London with the disappearing act and the tiger act with the live tiger. We just walked it through as though the tiger was there, right? So we get there to the gig that day in Germany, and the tiger's down below the stage in a cage. That's where they kept him, and they were kind of drugging him to keep him calm and everything. And I was down there, checking out the tiger, and Britt Eklund walks up alongside of me. And Britt Eklund, of course, beautiful. She's got a mini dress and tight top and everything. She's gorgeous. And, I would say that she would be comparable to maybe like Emma Stone of today, or maybe Jessica Alba, or
been there, done that.
I'm just trying to come up with some blonde girls that are kind of fine, anyway, so she comes up alongside of me, and she goes, "Oh, look at the tiger, little kitty. I just love this tiger." And I'm going like, okay. Kind of looking at her, and the tiger's kind of coming up, and
want to show me your kitty.
Of course, we don't put our hands in the cage, it's you, and so. But it had been drugged, and so it was in kind of a bad mood, and it had been drugged. So she wanted to take a picture with the tiger, so I kind of stepped to the side, and her friend who was with her got her camera, because of course we didn't have cell phones yet. So this is 1984. Actually, there were cell phones in Europe. They were starting to get popular then, but not in the States. So we didn't carry around cell phones. So we didn't have like a camera on us all the time. So somebody had a camera, and she wanted to take a picture. So to make a long story short, because I'm going to get to the good part of the story, she poses doing like a selfie kind of a thing with her hand up on the cage, and the tiger's right next to her, and she's looking away from the tiger into the camera, right? Well, while this is going on and she's posing for this, the tiger walks away, turns around, and he launches a piss stream on her. It was like a freaking hydrant. And it was like, it was a male Bengal tiger that not only was pissing on her, but was spreading his gland as well. So it was like this heavy kitty litter hydrant, completely engulfing her in tiger urine. And I watched all that go down. Wow. So that was a side story. And I met Slim Jim in Puerto Vallarta, in Mexico. I did a show with my wife, Diane. We did a 3-day festival there, and the Stray Cats were there, and I met him, and I told him about the story. And he like, Oh, yeah, I think I remember that. Of course, he's not with her anymore. But yeah, I think I remember that. She had to go back to the hotel and she had to get changed and had to get baking soda and put it all over. It's kind of like getting skunked,
Oh, wow.
and she had to get all red. So she could come back to the show and be the big star at the show, with her Stray Cats, groupie persona that she was doing.
How did that photo turn out?
So that was a predecessor to know that things were not going to go right with this tiger. Okay, so now we're doing the show. We do the show. Everybody plays. Joe Cocker barely can speak. He was hanging out in the bar with us all the night before, and he got so hammered that he came up on stage. He couldn't even, at soundcheck, he couldn't even make a peep out of his voice. He was totally laryngeal. No sound was coming out of his voice. Wow. So we didn't even know we had to call a doctor. They had to shoot him up with B12 and everything and push him out on stage. And
holy shit.
He finally started singing, "What would you do if I say?" He finally got going. So that was funny. And then we asked U2 if they wanted to sit in with us at the end of the night. And of course, at that point, Bono, who was kind of a dickhead, didn't want to, hang out, but he made Steve think he was going to do it. And he says, well, what song would you like to do? And he says, well, let's do Midnight Hour. That's an easy song. We all know that. He goes, okay. And I can't do an Irish accent, but what would be an Irish accent? Oh, okay, Steve, whatever you say there. I don't know.
That's not bad.
I don't know what Bono sounds like.
Yeah.
But anyway, they go, and for their encore, they do Midnight Hour on their own without Steve. And the crowd goes crazy. So it was a perfect song to end their shit with. We were supposed to end our set with it, with them sitting in with it. So he stole the song from Steve's idea, put it at the end of their show, and they got in their limos and took off. So they weren't even going to sit in with us. So typical Bono, because he's kind of, if you go to Dublin and you hang out with any of the locals there, they'll tell you the same thing. They all know the cat.
He's an asshole.
That's why he lives in California now. So anyway, that being said, hi, Bono. How you doing?
He's listening.
Adam was great. I love Adam. I hung out with Adam that night, too. But anyway, Joe Cocker was hammered. He couldn't even. So we do the set. We're in our tuxes. Bugs, our harmonica player, Norton Buffalo, is trying to play harmonica. And the bugs are clogging up the vents inside the harmonica. So he couldn't even play the harmonica. He had to keep banging on it. And he had to keep changing the harmonica. So it was just crazy. So we're all sweating. Finally, we start taking off the tux jackets. Steve didn't take his off. He had his tux on the whole time. He was just sweating like a pig. So here we go. We're getting ready to do the big act. We're playing Abracadabra. He goes up the steps. Now, here's the deal. The steps are hollow, and they're on wheels, too. And they slide underneath this box that's up on stilts, like I told you, which was a steel frame. So his job was to go up these little steps, get inside, open the door, they open the door, get inside with his guitar, wave at everybody while the song was, we're still playing the groove. They shut the drapes. And what his job was to open a trap door on the bottom of this cage and crawl down inside these little steps and really crunch himself into like a fetal position and get inside this little step thing that had wheels on it. And they were supposed to take a rope and pull this little stairwell out from underneath this thing and take it over the side of the stage, just get rid of it real fast, because it was just going to look like he went upstairs, he got inside, blah, 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 the drape shut. He had about 20 seconds to get inside the stairs and then bring the lid down while he was grabbing another wire, which brought the false wall, because there was a false wall that was the whole size of the cage in back of it and had about 2.5 feet clearance. And this poor male Bengal tiger who'd been drugged all day long, who was really pissed off. He'd already pissed on Brent Eklund, and he's inside this little chamber inside the back of the cage. So Steve pulls that down. He drops the little door that's above the stairwell that he's in, and then this thing goes bam, this fake wall. And that's when they were supposed to pull the stairwell out. Well, a tiger who had been cramped up inside this thing, he immediately came forward, and he immediately went to the front of this thing. Now, the floor of this cage is made out of plywood. It's not, the frame is steel, but the floor, it's just got a couple little pieces of steel across it, but the whole floor is a piece of marine plywood. It was a pretty good piece of plywood, but not good enough to withstand the weight of a 750, 800-pound Bengal tiger pushing down on this plywood piece of flooring, pushed down on the top of this stairwell, and the stairwell got stuck. So now they can't pull the stairwell out, and Steve's inside of it, and the tiger's on top, and Steve's in a tux, sweating his ass off inside a little box in August in Germany. And you know what happens to tigers when they give them drugs? They lose their bowels because they can't control their bowels. And so the tiger then shits and pees all on the floor where this trap door. And of course, the trap door doesn't have any weather stripping on it. So all the piss goes down into this stairwell, and now Steve Miller's trapped in a little confined place that he can't get out of, and he's covered with tiger piss. And so, wow. And now the guy is freaking out. God. The guy's freaking out. That's the thing, because he knows something's wrong. The magician, he knows that he can't. They're just still like playing. He's trying to get out. So he gets some roadies. They come out with a crowbar, and he can't spin the thing because he's supposed to be able to spin the thing to show everybody that there's nothing underneath and that Steve can't escape. But it's kind of getting blown because this thing is stuck underneath. So they come out with two crowbars. They finally crack this thing out from underneath, and then they finally get Steve out and wheel him off the side. We're still playing the group. The being spun around. I'm watching from the side, and I see they open up the top of the stairwell, and Steve pops out like a jack-in-the-box, and he's screaming he wants to kill everybody backstage. He's just absolutely berserk. And at this point, I can't hold it off anymore. I'm laughing my ass off. I can't believe what we've just done, and it was all because we had never done even with sandbags. We could have done this better and rehearsed this whole thing, but because the plywood had never been tested, we didn't know it was going to sag with an 800-pound bagel tiger. So, oh my God! So if you go on YouTube. And you look up Steve Miller Band, Abracadabra, Rock Palast, 1984, you'll see a video of this scene. Now, you won't see any of the things that I saw, but you'll see Steve going to the box. You'll see the tiger come out. You'll see all that. But that's the backstory that goes with it.
Oh my God! I love that.
That's just one of many stories, but that takes a while to say, So there you go.
Okay, definitely sucks to be Steve in that sense. Like that's some real shit luck.
Tiger shit, actually.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. So okay. I
not want to kill people too.
Now I am totally okay with foregoing our mindless question segment. If you, because
I mean, you asked for it, you got it. I mean, I just want. That's a crazy story. Now, there's a lot of things tied in with it. Of course, I didn't tell you the British tie-in, but it only let you know that the tigers had loose bowels. So that gives you a foreshadow. See, as a writer, I always think of this stuff like there has to be foreshadowing before the story.
It's perfect.
It's
well.
Honestly, like you led me to believe she was going to be mauled for a picture or something.
No, she didn't get mauled. She got pissed on.
But I don't think that would be considered a funny story.
Did the picture that was captured? Did it capture the stream on?
I never saw it. I'm sure I don't even know if they took the picture. I think the piss happened before they even snapped it. Because they were posing for it when it went back and walked away, and he turned around and I watched the whole thing. He actually put his butt up in the air and his tail straight up. I go, what is he doing? And then all of a sudden, there's a stream.
Oh my God.
She kept going, "Ooh, little kitty, me, mama, and doing all that stuff chicks do, And sorry, the ladies out there. I don't mean to say that all women would be foolish. She was being really foolish.
Our ladies that listen to the Mindless Morning Show, they're cool. Don't worry.
Okay.
They're exactly like that.
He was being a little obnoxious with the cat, and the cat was a male cat, and he was kind of proud. He was the king of the jungle, for crying out loud. And so, he just turned around and let her have it, man. And I went like, this is not going to be a good day. And I knew that something was going to go down later, too. And sure enough, Steve got it, too, in a different way.
That's
in a different way.
To be trapped in a box, sweating.
He was trapped in the box, and he couldn't get out. And he was in a tuxedo, and it was probably about 95 degrees with 95% humidity. Even though it was dark and it was evening, it was still hot as hell.
I'm amazed he didn't just pass out.
So he smelled like tiger piss for the whole show.
He had to change his clothes. I know that.
He had to change. Okay.
But the whole thing was he had to get back on stage immediately because the act was that he goes into a box, they close the drapes, they spin it around, he turns into a tiger, and then he appears on the side. And you go, how did they do that? I mean, how did he get out of it? Yeah. Because you could see everything underneath because they're spinning it, and there's the guy's got whatever, he's got the big fishing net or whatever he puts underneath. And he's feeling around, and there's no mirrors, and it had great intentions. Yeah, really great magic act, but it just kind of went haywire.
So, how do you think the atmosphere of the crowd did it shift at all during that time?
The crowd still got off on it. I think they enjoyed it. That's the reason why it's on YouTube, because people think that it was a great thing. I guess
they didn't notice the mishap. I guess
no, because they didn't see Steve coming out of the box. Yeah, he was in the wings. I saw it, but they didn't see him popping out of the like a jack in the box. So he had to go change his jacket, his pants real fast, and they come because we kept grooving. We kept playing.
The whole time.
I wouldn't be able to play. It's kind of like a German polka, it just goes up and down. So we're doing this thing, and all the Germans are out there. They're going, they're going drinking beer and crazy.
They're all drunk anyways.
Oh my God! And there was such a crazy crowd because in all the way up to about 84 was a big punk scene going on in Europe, and they wouldn't show their appreciation by clapping and saying they would flip the bird, yell F you, and in fact I remember distinctly somebody had a big red hot water bottle. You ever seen those rubber big red hot water bottles?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They passed one around the crowd, and all the punks urinated in it, but they didn't plug it up. They just left it open, and they tossed it on the stage. And so when it hit the stage, it just kind of like collapsed and went whoosh. And so we got hit too with all the German.
Oh no!
So there was like piss all over the place on this stage by the end of the night.
Who has to clean the stage? Somebody who's really mad at their job.
And then they would take a beer, like a beer that had not been opened in a can, and they would throw it at your head as hard as they could. An unopened beer. And it would just like hit like an amplifier, and a corner of the amp would just like crunk, it would just fall off, I mean, if you got hit by this, you'd be dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean
nothing's more metal than
in
that.
Europe were tough. And then they had big they had big peacock mohawks,
Oh, yeah.
They were into tats way before the Americans were, And so it was like it was a nutty crowd. It was crazy. But they liked us. They just had a weird way of showing it.
Yeah, we love you.
You man. And if you were to talk to them at the end of the night, they'd be going like, "That was a great show, man. I really had a great time."
I tried to kill you. That means it was a good show.
Yeah, come over for tea tomorrow.
It was you remember the mosh pits and and the slam dancing and all that stuff. Oh. It was all about violence being cool,
The walls of death.
I was about to bring up the wall of death. Lamb of God got that going real big, and then they got it outlawed. You know what the Wall of Death is, right?
No.
So the band, it's typically like a big metal band. They'll reenact like a medieval war. Well, they'll split the crowd up. Half of the crowd goes to
I saw Guar do that once.
Yeah. And half the crowd goes to the right, and then they start boom, and then everybody has to charge at each other and meet in like a big middle mosh.
Oh, like Braveheart.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. It's
only people are going
Wall of Death.
crazy.
Okay, I got you. All right. Yeah, I saw Guar did that once. I remember they were all dressed up in armor and everything, and they had the dinosaur, that was spewing blood, and then they rip open the belly, and then a baby would come out with the placenta and everything.
That's a good thing.
That's entertainment.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the back. I can't. I'm gonna go to the back. I'm not very food, so I would get shredded.
So anyway, that's a road story. That's one.
Oh, I love it. Well, hell,
that's like one of the best ones I think we could have gotten. That was quite the story.
It's almost as good as Spinal Tap, but nothing tops the pod that wouldn't open on Derek Smalls. That was great.
What? Oh,
did you ever see? Are you guys too young for Spinal Tap?
No,
I know
I'm
of
not.
like the movie being about a band, but I haven't
You guys
watched.
gotta watch it. It's funny. It's guys like me being really foolish, you know,
Oh,
my age group. I mean, because they were all aging English rockers that were trying to cross over into the '80s with the hairband crowd, but they just couldn't do it because they were so old school. So, but they were into stage stuff. They were into stage, staging and whatnot. And this involves some bad staging malfunction, similar to the tiger malfunction. So,
man, that was such a good story. It makes, like, looking at my mindless questions, they look like shit compared to that.
No. You can ask me what I baked in the oven yesterday. That's okay.
Yeah.
What's your favorite toothpaste?
That's a good question.
I mean, well, see, that's the thing, because whenever I tailor these questions, I have to be like, I don't know the personality of who I'm interviewing, so I can't be like, you ever had a foursome? I can't like be crazy. I gotta just kind of keep it chill and innocent.
Okay. Well, I mean, you're trying to be a responsible adult, and I get it.
I'm trying. Okay, I have a question for you. How old do you think I am?
You?
Yeah.
That's actually a very good question.
I'm going to say probably about 27.
You're pretty close. I'm 30.
Okay.
Okay,
right.
Josh.
I went young because I thought you were going to kind of brag how mature you were for your age.
I'm 16.
Okay, so you're 30. Okay.
Drinking beer and have tax.
All right.
16. Yeah. Yes. So I'll give you a little example of these mindless questions. I'll just throw in at you. Anything that comes to your head doesn't even have to be related to the question. Just anything that pops in your head that might be fun or whatever to share.
Okay.
All good. So, when's the last time you've painted something?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Okay. Yeah. So they're not that bad.
It's been a while. Last time I painted something was the outdoor lighting fixtures out in front of my house that were peeling, and I just couldn't take it anymore. And my old lady was like, I should say my old lady, my lovely wife, Diane Steinberg.
There you go.
By the way, Diane Steinberg Lewis is Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. She was in the movie Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band with the Bee Gees and Peter Frampton in 1978. And she's the only Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds there's ever been. She actually is the character. So just thought I'd throw
Holy shit.
She didn't like the way
over here.
Yeah, but she didn't like the way the light fixtures worked. Look what we're looking. So I painted those, but I think that's the last painting. And that was a couple of years ago. So it's been a while since I painted anything.
See, and I feel like sometimes when I ask these questions, they're so like way different. They help people remember some crazy fun shit. Yeah.
You got Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds out of that.
Exactly. And there was one that we asked somebody, and they told a story of when they robbed somebody's house, and we were like, okay.
With painting? With painting?
They're different every time.
That one we asked if they've ever broken glass, and it was to break into that famous mafia man. Now I can't even think of it. Al Capone's brother's house.
Capone's brother's house.
Yeah, he broke into his house because I had asked, when's the last time you broke glass or have you ever broken a window? And he's like, oh, yeah. And that was just like,
so that was very
holy shit. Yeah. So then another one I got, this one is stupid as shit. What color is the shower tiles in your bathroom?
Beige, brick red, and
all our listeners
black.
know why this question is in there.
And do you like it?
I do. I actually had a custom design.
There you go. Hell yeah. I do.
That's actually pretty cool that you got like an entire custom like shower.
Yeah, this house that we finally ended up with was it wasn't a custom house from the ground up, but it was a tract home in a very ritzy area that had options. And so we were able to design with options.
That's
the lady.
You
meet the designer lady that's in the front office, and she helps.
Oh, yeah.
Pick out all your tile and your marble and everything,
So
that's cool.
So I'm a new
So before Nick gets into his nonsense, have you ever eaten tofu?
Oh yeah,
no,
absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
And tempeh too. I love tempeh and I love tofu both.
Hippie?
Tempeh. Yeah, you never had tempeh?
I don't think
That's the sediment that's at the bottom. And before they had veggie burgers, you could get the tempeh. It was like kind of like this sediment at the bottom of the tofu barrel, if you will. And if you took that and it was real solid. It was like kind of solid because it was all the skins of the soybeans and everything. And if you cut it up into like little steak-sized chunks, you could fry it. And it ended up being almost like eating hamburger. It was kind of cool.
Damn, yeah. That's interesting.
That.
My wife,
it's spelled Tempeh. Tempeh.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do the same thing because my wife's a vegetarian. She's been one for like 16 years.
Well, when you go to the health food store, look for some tempeh and see if
I think I will. Yeah, she might like that.
What is your favorite?
I can never be a vegetarian. Ooh, yeah.
Next question.
Oh, we had asked, what is your favorite food?
My favorite food? Well, it's probably a toss-up because I'm a Libra, and I always have to answer everything on both sides of the question. So it's a combination between really good, prepared, maybe pressure cooked barbecue, like ribs or brisket.
Ooh.
With a really good sauce, like a Memphis style sauce, or probably either Thai or Indian food. I would lean Thai food, specifically, green coconut curries and, tom kha kai, soup, coconut soup, stuff like that.
Wow, you eat.
I really like the flavor of coconut for whatever reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, hell yeah. I'm a big fan
got
of
a wide variety of food you
yeah, well, one's a heavy protein and the other one's like a heavy, more vegetable and soup or sauce kind of a thing.
Oh yeah, Josh and his food.
Yeah, I love.
And then of course Mexican and Italian are like a close second, third. But those are the ones that are exotic that I seek out. Like when I'm on the road, if I know there's a good barbecue in Texas or Memphis or North Carolina or one of those places, I'm there, man. I mean, Louisville, any of those places, man.
For sure.
Because there's a certain kind of love that goes into that stuff, including all the trimmings. So you got to know how to make the coleslaw just right. You got to have all the trimmings just right. Cornbread can't be too sweet. You got to have collard greens, some black-eyed peas. It's basically soul food, So it all kind of goes together in a package.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Unfortunately, Orlando's not.
It's basically farmer food, which I should not be eating because you're supposed to be out working in the field for 7 hours. When you're eating this kind of food, which you don't, of course, you just eat it and lay down and go to sleep.
Yeah,
pretty much. So this one I think might be interesting. Have you ever cut down a tree or been involved in any type of logging activity?
It's funny that you mentioned that. I have a cabin up in Montana, and I've had several trees up there that I've had cut down. And there's another one, some friends of mine that were up there. The day after I had to come back off the road and go out with Steve, they went and they felled a giant larch tree that was, probably several hundred years old. And my friend took a video of it, and it was awesome. Just watch, but I have not been around a really, really big tree being felled. I just I've missed out every time.
So
okay.
This kind of reminds me, I saw in Mythbusters today. So there was somebody who was cutting a tree with a chainsaw, and long previously this tree had been shot with a gun. There was a bullet in there. And as he was cutting it, the chainsaw hit the bullet and launched it enough to actually penetrate him and kill him. I thought that was crazy. That was like the craziest thing I've heard, and nothing I would have even thought to be possible. So definitely be careful anytime you're.
I have never heard that. That's a new one. I would think that the chainsaw would just buck out. Now I have a story that ties into the Steve Miller Band that involves chainsaws in a tree.
Okay.
I love these questions. I'm sorry.
Our former bass player Billy Peterson is a great jazz upright bass player, but he also plays electric bass. And when Steve did his jazz album in 1987 called Born to Be Blue, I had nothing to do with that record. That rhythm section was the rhythm section was playing for Ben Sidran, who was a keyboard player who Steve had gone to college with and had written Space Cowboy with. And so they were out promoting that tour, and that band got to be the road band for that tour. And then the Greatest Hits CD came out around 1987, 88, right when they were touring. And it sold like hotcakes. And all of a sudden they had to put all the rock songs back into the set because Steve was doing jazz tunes. He was doing like Willow Weep for Me and When Sunny Gets Blue and, just, all kinds of jazz stuff. And it was like his audience was like, they were going to get a T-shirt and a beer, it's like, and so he had to put the rock stuff back in the show. So I ended up coming back into the show, and I came back in at 93 because I'd taken a break from 87 to 93 while he was doing that rhythm section to raise my first child, who I had with Diane. So I came back in 93 playing guitar, and around 2008, our bass player went out in his backyard in Minneapolis. It was probably around the end of November, I'm thinking. And there'd already been a couple freezes, but it was probably a nice day. And he was up on a 12-foot ladder, and he borrowed a chainsaw from his next door neighbor that had not been sharpened in a while, so it was kind of dull. And he was up there chopping limbs out of his tree up on this 12-foot ladder. And he hit a big branch, and what happened is the chain seized up. And it wouldn't cut anymore. It stopped, and because the motor's running, it bucked out the chainsaw and threw him back onto this platform, this ladder. He's up about 10 feet, 12 feet. I don't know. It was up pretty high. And so he throws the chainsaw, knowing that he needs to get rid of that really fast. Otherwise, it's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre time, So he gets rid of that. And he's trying to get his balance, and he can't get it. He says, screw it. And he tries to come out of the fall because he has to fall. And so the ladder went with him. And he tried to roll, by landing with his feet a little bit, just like you do with a paratrooper thing. Because he was in the military, and he kind of knew this stuff. Well, the permafrost underneath the ground was frozen up to right to the surface. So there wasn't any give on the lawn. It was totally hard. So he broke his ankle in about 4 places. And we were on tour. He was just home for a couple of days and decided to just trim his tree with this borrowed chainsaw. Yeah. So I'm a bass player. I played bass and guitar on the Abracadabra album, as I told you earlier, with its demos. And even though I'd been Steve's guitar player for many, many years, I had played bass on a couple of his records. And he had forgotten that I'd played bass. So we were in the middle of this tour. We're getting ready to go do Austin City Limits, as a matter of fact, with their new Moody Theater, as a matter of fact, which we were helping to debut. And so I had to go over to bass. The manager and Steve said, well, you got to play bass now. So I went over to bass. And the second I went over to bass, the drummer and the manager, who was also our in-house mixer, went, oh, my God, the pocket, it's so good. He goes, you got to stay on bass. So that's how I got the gig on bass in the Steve Miller Band as our poor bass player who was supposed to be convalescing and coming back onto the gig while I was subbing for him. I ended up taking his job, unfortunately. God bless him. We're still great friends. And we actually own the cabin together up in Montana.
Cool.
Together. So we're friends. In fact, we're doing a gig in July together up there. Nice. So we're friends, but he's a jazz player. He actually went back to playing bebop after he left the band, and he's happier playing what he loves than he was playing all these 3-chord rock tunes that he didn't really understand anyway, So that kind of worked out. And then we eventually hired this guitar player, Jacob, in Austin from Denmark that took my job. So I got hired and fired on the same day, basically, or kind of. Actually, I was just subbing for Billy. And then when Jacob came on the scene and Steve decided to hire Jacob, he fired me as the guitar player and he hired me as the bass player that day. Wow. So that's how I got the bass job, was from a chainsaw bucking back off of a tree.
Look at these, man. See, when I write these questions, I'm like, this is so stupid. But then it happens more than once where the question is dumb, but the answer is just perfect.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
I felt bad about. I mean, I didn't really want to change, but it just was. It was kind of a situation where Steve was kind of like, because he loved my guitar playing.
Yeah.
And he loved me playing lead guitar, but when I would do it, I'd get standing ovations, and he didn't like that too much. So he liked it when I went on bass because he didn't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So
and that's the truth, actually.
Sounds about right. I believe it.
Huge question here, Kenny. Did you want to refill your scotch, or did you want to wind it down, or what's going on in your head?
In my head, I'm doing great in my head. No, I'm hanging with you guys. I mean, it's up to you.
Okay. We are going to take another.
I got a little bit of a cough. I went out walking tonight, and it was kind of cold and blustery, as I said.
Sure.
And I don't usually have a cough, so you have to excuse me. I got a little bit of cough.
Oh, understandable. No worries.
Plus, I just had my second COVID shot, so I might have a little bit of COVID.
Hey, congratulations.
Because that's kind of what it does. When you get the COVID shot, it gives you a little bit of the COVID virus. And so
yes.
I'm kind of feeling something dangling, and kind of like this necklace in my lung. I'm trying to cough that out, So that's what
Hopefully you don't start speaking like Chinese or Russian on us.
I'm good. I mean, the scotch is just about gone anyway. So I'm not going to. I don't drink a lot these days. I just have a little.
Okay. Understand. Well, then we'll keep going through. I didn't know if you wanted to refill or what. Okay. Well, then we will keep on going without a break. And I will ask you another stupid ass question. And it is, what's the largest vehicle you've ever driven?
Nothing really big. I never driven the tour bus. I have other band members that have driven tour buses, but not me.
Ford F-150.
I'm trying to think if I ever rented an RV, and I don't think I did. I was going to rent an RV. I never did it. I never fell through with it. I'd say probably a camper.
Okay. Yeah.
That's about it, a camper.
Not too bad. Okay. Oh, this is stupid.
Oh, wait.
Oh, wait. Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay, we pried something loose.
A friend of mine came up to Montana, and he brought his RV. That's right. We were up in Glacier National Park, and for whatever reason, he didn't know how to get there. And rather than make him have to take a bunch of directions and stuff, I knew how to get there. So his son and he sat in the back, and I drove his RV up into Glacier National Park to go up to the End of the Sun Road. And while I was going up there, I misjudged this thing, and I drove it into like a little small rock wall kind of separator thing along the side of the road. And I came around one turn, because there are really twisty turning roads up there that were built in the 30s by the WPA. And I clipped the tire and his fender on a little rock outcropping wall. And I blew his tire out.
Oh shit.
In his RV. So that's my only RV experience is I blew a tire out in Glacier National Park.
Hey, well, yeah.
And I completely had forgotten about this, so thanks for remembering.
Yeah, you are welcome. You are welcome. And that's definitely one of the big reasons why I do these questions, because you never know. You just never know. So this one is really stupid. So have you ever been bowling and accidentally let the ball slip behind you when you go to wind it back?
No, but I have a hamstring. I was with the same gentleman, the bass player that I took the job of, and this was after I'd already gotten the gig, and it shows you how friendly we are. We were doing a gig together in Minneapolis, not a Steve Miller gig, but another gig, because we have another band called the Hang Dynasty. And we were there, and we decided to go bowling one night, and just out of nowhere. And I went out there, and I was, get kind of cocky and having a good time. And I did a certain kind of move, and I hadn't been stretching. This was probably about 8 years ago, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
It wasn't a long, long time ago, but about
I was there. It was 8 years ago. I was there.
Right. For you, it'd be a long time ago, but for me, so yeah, I just went to go do a really cool little move, and I spread my legs out. And it's getting all fancy, and all of a sudden, bam! My hamstring just went like, and I fell down on the thing, and I couldn't get up. My hamstring was non-functional, so I had to crawl on my hands and knees back over to the seating area, and everybody going, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "I think I pulled my hamstring," and it was like, so that was it for the night for me for bowling.
Oh,
but no, I had never done that thing. But I did go to a club in New York in 1981 when I was auditioning for Todd Rundgren's Utopia band, and I'd never been to New York before. And they took me to a place called Bowlmore, and Bowlmore was in, I think it was in Washington Square, and it was upstairs, and it was an old bowling alley. It was upstairs, an old building, and some punks had taken it over. Or maybe not punks, but it was a rock and roll. It was before the rock and roll bowling alleys they have now, which I think are Ace, Deuce, or Dominoes. What the hell they call it? I can't remember now. But anyway, this is before that. Then, of course, New York always has everything first. But not only was it a punk rock crowd in there, they had a giant PA system set up on the lanes, and it was like blisteringly loud concert-level music while it was all going on. And those punks were in there with the big peacock mohawks, the same ones that were flipping the bird at us in Europe. They were in New York. And a guy did exactly what you were talking about. He was so skinny and emaciated that he went to go swing his ball. He went back like this. He probably only weighed about 120 pounds, right? So he threw this ball back of it, and sure enough, he went right back and landed right on his back.
Oh, wow.
And I laughed my ass off. But that was an interesting bowling alley. I think the mob might have owned it because the scorecards you were able to fill out, but the scorecard, instead of it saying, embrace 2, game 1, game 2, it was like cocaine, acid, mushrooms, heroin. I mean, you would check off a box in it, and you would give that to a guy that would come around to your stall. And about 15, 20 minutes later, they come back with a brown paper bag, and you could put that on your credit card that they'd taken in the front. And it was like, this was like a total drug deal thing going on in a bowling alley. It was all set up to look like you were doing a scorecard, but you were filling out a menu like a sushi bar.
That's incredible.
So that was my first experience in New York at a bowling alley. It was called Bowlmore. Of course, now I'm sure that you can't do that anymore, but I just had when the mob or whoever was doing it, and it was just like, wow. Because the guy that took me was all boasting. He was like, check this out. Fill that out. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
And sure enough, the bag appeared, and there it was.
Could you imagine going to a bowling alley like right now and be like, hey, where do I get the drugs?
I mean,
I'm sure that there's drugs sold at bowling alleys, but this was set up to actually be a part of their business, and it went on your credit card.
That's just so crazy.
As like a legit purchase.
Yeah. And nobody saw the drugs because it was in a little paper bag. And it was stapled, and it said on there, do not open until after exiting the building.
What a great idea.
No, it wasn't. It was really terrible. And don't even
bad idea. Don't do it, listeners. Don't do it.
But if anybody knows of a place like this right now, let me know.
Yeah, they had everything, man. It was crazy.
Damn. All right. So then we can jump over to this little thing. Is do you like carnivals or carnival games? I know a lot of them try to rip people off.
Dude, I can verify that.
Well, I mean, when I was a kid, and you had a girl with you or something, you would do that stuff. But I mean, we place state fairs, from time to time. We haven't done it in a couple of years. But
that's kick-ass.
Like we played this New York State Fair a couple of years ago, and it was like, I don't know. I don't do the games so much anymore. I just go to the the kiosks where they sell the leather and the cool looking, purses and backpacks and, art things and whatever. But, in the old days, I used to like to do the water one, or you'd have the stream of water, just like the tiger with the catfish, you stick it in that little ring, and you get a Cupid doll or whatever. And of course, in the old days, we used to actually have a real true pellet gun that you could shoot the ducks with, you
Yeah.
You actually had real bullets.
Can't get away with that nowadays.
The old days, they used 22s, but that went away around the time I was a kid. But they kept the pellet gun, so you could use a pellet gun. And or a BB gun.
Did the Christmas Story ruin that? Are they the ones that got
like the Red Ryder, Daisy?
Yeah.
And so, but those were fun, but not for a long time.
Yeah, understandable. Well, I want you to tell us about your YouTube channel before we have to head off.
Okay.
And I know that it's you teach in it, right?
Well, the YouTube channel that's up now, which you just go to Kenny Lee Lewis on YouTube, has a channel on it called Fret Friends, FretFriends. And on Fret Friends, I do sort of an entertainment value level performance thing. And then I'll do a little lesson at the back end of it to kind of show people what I was doing while I was doing that. First one I did was Carlos Santana. And then I did a Steve Miller song that was on the Abracadabra album that I wrote as a lesson to how you record a track. I did a Jeff Beck one on a song that my wife wrote. The one I just did the other day was Jimi Hendrix, Little Wing. I've done some other ones, and those are just to get people interested in what I do and how I do it. And then I've been talking about having this subscription website coming up, which is going to be called fretfriends.com, FretFriends.com. And if you go there now, it shows that it's under construction, but I'm just getting everything, all the details ironed out. And that's going to be a subscription site where you go and all the secrets that I've learned over the years and stuff will be taught on that, including, all your basic theory and chords and scales and things, just like all the other guitar classes. But I do with a flair of humor and with some of these road stories thrown in, and it's just kind of like doing this interview, so it's got a little more than just some stodgy guy going, yeah, you got to play a major scale over and over. And learn theory, it's like, this is a little more, I just take videos of close-ups of the neck, what I'm doing. I'm also going to be doing one for bass, obviously, because I'm a bass player as well. So that'll come later. But right now I'm getting ready to debut the guitar part of it in probably the next week. So anybody that's out there listening, just go to fretfriends.com. And, you'll see it when it comes up. Or if you want to subscribe to my YouTube channel, just subscribe and you'll know about it when it debuts, because I'll send out to all the subscribers.
That's perfect. And I will say, when this airs, because we're recording right now and we have a little bit of a backlog, nothing too crazy, but a couple weeks, Josh?
Okay.
If that,
I'd have to look.
It will. So when this is out for the world, it should be live, which is awesome for everybody that's listening right now. You can go there right now and it should be up and running and everything should be good. So
either way, all the links will be in the description, because if it can land at least to a coming soon page, then the link will. And
I'll say it like I always do every episode. If you guys are not on YouTube, jump on YouTube. I know a lot of y'all listen on Spotify, Amazon, Pandora, Google, Apple, whatever. But YouTube, you can see us, and I can, do that and flick you off because I love you, right? That's how it goes, right? So, it's been really great having you on the show.
Yeah,
man.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure talking to you. And I'm super interested in learning the guitar. And I don't know, I kind of...
Well, Josh, you just might have to sign up. It's $25 a month and $250 a year.
I definitely will, but I have a...
And you'll have and there'll also be a free pass to look over it for like a day or so. I'll have like a 24-hour free pass. That's all going to be part of the promo.
But I have a serious question. Let me just grab this guitar to ask you a question.
Okay, Josh, go ahead.
This is going to be pretty funny, I think.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
I dabble. I play guitar some. I've written a few songs. It's a lot of fun.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, the vibrations alone, just the strings being up against your body, is actually healing you, even though you don't know it. But there's certain kind of fractals and frequencies that are permeating through your bones and your body that are actually getting things in your body to line up better and to kind of like come in line, if you will. Almost like the way magnetism and quartz and all that stuff does, and crystals and whatnot. There's all that stuff is real. I mean, it's an actually proven thing. And so just having a guitar, even though you may not play really well on it, if you just sit there and hit a chord in the middle of the night, sit on your couch, turn all the lights off, just hit a chord and just let it go and just bathe you with vibration. It'll do amazing things for your health.
Wow. I agree. Cool. Josh, what are you trying to show us, Josh?
So,
this is another reason why you should watch on YouTube.
Yeah. So I wanted to make sure, like, because I am really, really fucking bad at playing. So much so that even with this little chord buddy, where I only press these buttons, I still fucking suck.
Well, that's just like, rock, whatever it was the, what was the rock guitar, thing where you'd play
Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
Guitar Hero.
Yeah. Guitar Hero. I mean, that's the other cop where you're just using a mouse, to like pretend that you're playing rock and roll.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
all you have to do is learn a couple of chords. You can play right along with a record. It's great. The little chord buddy. The chord buddy is not going to help you with shapes. You're going to want to have like shapes and stuff. Let's see if I have one here.
Yeah, Josh.
Yeah, you're going to want to.
This is why I asked.
See this shape? See that shape right there?
Okay.
It looks kind of like an inverted Batman. If you turn it around this way, it looks like Batman, or it looks like the devil. The devil.
Oh yeah.
Heavy metal show. That's actually if you look at the neck, that's actually a pentatonic minor blues scale. That's what it looks like. So what you do is you use a sight association on my lesson site. You're going to have little tools like this to work with. Where you say, "Oh yeah, Kenny said it looked like Batman," and you go like, "Okay," and that's the way the pattern looks on the scale. You learn the blues scale.
I'll tell you what,
as far as chords go, the shapes are a little more challenging because you only have little proximities to work with.
Yeah.
There'll still be some shapes that I could probably, and I'll probably have to get into that. But scales are much easier to do because you have a lot more real estate to work with.
But
that's the kind of thing that you want to do, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to take shortcuts, and because you don't want to learn the mathematical formula inside the theory in order to see how chords are built and where your fingers would be able to go to hit those notes in that chord. It would be the closest proximity to one another to where your chord clusters that you go for with your fingers are easily accessible. And that's the thing that you're either avoiding because you're lazy or you just don't get it.
A little bit of both, I'm going to be honest. Like, so when you say the shapes thing, it gets me kind of excited, but it also reminds me of an episode of Friends where Phoebe, she's trying to teach Joey how to play the guitar. And instead of saying chord names, she says like Bear Claw or like just like these funny names for all of them. So
yeah, there's a little bit of that. You got to curl your fingers, curling fingers, and wrist English is real important. You have to make it's just like tennis or golf or anything else. The wrist English is really the thing that makes the difference between a professional and somebody who's just banging on a guitar at the beach. It's like there's you got to really kind of. And I show all that, and I get into all that stuff with camera angles and everything on my instructional because, I want people to actually see what I'm doing. Because without having a private lesson where you're one-on-one with somebody, you have to really have these close-ups. And you really got to make sure that they're following what you're doing, move by move. Because otherwise you will be lost. Having dots, you can see the dots.
Yes.
There's the dots. You can see the dots on there.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
But they just look like geometric forms, it's like it's not like your hand grabbing a piece of wood and forming a shape. You want to be able to memorize these shapes. They're different types of shapes. Just like when you flip the bird or do the devil salute. Those are shapes. Those are shapes, or the hound dog,
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Doing a lot of shadow puppetry.
But those are shapes that if you get them in your mind, then the association of the sight to finger coordination will start to lock in, and you'll start to get it, And so I don't know if that helps at all, but you're going to just have to work really hard at memorizing shapes.
Yeah,
and and then building your calluses to where when you build the shape on those steel strings, which are like little Swedish files.
Yeah.
That they don't hurt your feelings, because I suggest if you want to build calluses, just hold like an E chord down as hard as you can. I'm not like forcing it, but just as, like you would normally play. But just don't play anything. Just sit there and watch TV, or work on your computer with one hand or whatever. But just hold your fingers on that string, on those strings, for a period of 20 seconds. When they really start to hurt, lift off. Mm-hmm. You can kind of, don't get them wet, of course, because you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Just kind of like work them out and then put the E chord right back on again and just hold it. And every time you do that, you're sending a message to your brain to send callus material to be built on the tip of your finger. It actually, your brain goes, pain, fingertip, all right, everybody. So it's like building materials. They said, send more material to the front lines, stick them on the tips of the finger. Hand is being damaged. The body is amazing. It will actually do stuff like that. So that's what you want to do, is make sure you have the calluses and you memorize the shapes. Once you do that, you'll be okay.
So not only are you giving guitar lessons, you're just giving all sorts of fucking lessons to like the core mechanics of music and guitar. That's
I know.
That's phenomenal.
So I will stop my method, because what I was doing was I would get pieces of sandpaper and staple them to the wall and just do that like a cat, just with my fingertips over and over and over.
Too aggressive.
Until they're raw.
Why are my fingers bleeding?
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Mindless.
You just want to irritate. You just want to. It's like an oyster. An oyster makes a pearl when it becomes irritated by one singular grain of sand. So you just want to irritate it, and then eventually you'll end up with a beautiful pearl.
Hell yeah, man! That's beautifully spoken.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
That's like Chinese. That's like Chinese shit.
Yeah,
teachings of Laos.
I am so thrilled that you have spent your time today with us. I mean, it has been
Me too.
Awesome to have you. Awesome to hear from you. And
well, I need all the promotion I can get to sell my stuff, but unfortunately, I don't have my site up and running yet, so we're just doing a teaser on that. But I mean, I do have. You can buy my jazz guitar CD on CD Baby. It's called New Vintage. It's been out for about 15 years. I haven't come out with any new product in a while. I have stuff that I put out. I just haven't put it all together because it's real eclectic. But I could do that, and I need to do that. I need to put out a new CD. But if you want to buy the jazz one, it's kind of like a George Benson instrumental, smooth jazzy kind of thing. It's called New Vintage, and it's on CD Baby.
Awesome.
Love it. And I will be
good.
I was going to say, I will be showing up with my guitar at your cabin in Montana. We'll jam.
Oh, okay.
That's not creepy, right? No.
Is there?
We'll chop down a big tree. We'll chop down a big tree together.
Yeah.
Experience that together.
Dull chainsaws. I love it.
Yeah, give him the chainsaw though. So, is there any last parting words you want to say to our viewers? Anything at all? Spread some wealth, knowledge, anything?
I just think that Nick and Josh are two excellent young men that are doing a great job with their, show here. You've taught me a few things about, time and the way that this, the sequence and way you're doing all this. I'm going to have to start having guests on my YouTube channel as well. I've had some big celebrity guitar players that have agreed to come on and do some, interviews and also playing with me. So I'm learning about this Zoom and all this other stuff as I'm going. I did my first one with a guitar lesson last week, and it was fun. I mean, I'd never been a host before, but thanks a lot for teaching me too, and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely,
anytime. Man. It was so fun,
Yeah. So, that's Kenny Lee Lewis, everyone. So,
all right, great googly boogala, and keep on rocking.
Yeah.
And hopefully, we'll see you this fall with the Steve Miller Band and coming to your town. Who knows?
Ooh, I hope so, man. I hope so.
You can check SteveMillerBand.com, and it'll give you the tour schedule.
Will do.
Oh, cool.
Excellent.
Hell yeah.
Well, everyone, stay mindless.
All right, man.
Thank you guys for tuning in to the Mindless Morning Show. We hope you enjoyed it, and we greatly appreciate you guys picking us out of the many great podcasts out there. Now go enjoy your mindless day.